Today, I'm going to talk about story premises and how you can use a simple formula to hook any reader. So, let's dive in. If I were to ask you what your story is about, what would you say? While it seems like a simple question, a lot of writers actually struggle with this. After all, how do you know how much information to give away? You want to hook readers in, but you don't want to reveal too much about the story. The answer to this is a story premise. This is a short paragraph that will describe your story perfectly every time. Let's start by talking about a few different elements to include in the premise. Number 1, the protagonist. When you're introducing your main character, you'll want to describe them. To keep it short, I like to use only 2 or 3 descriptions. A few things you might want to indicate are their name, their age, their occupation, a favorite hobby of theirs, or any other things that are important to your story. Number 2, the situation. During your character introduction, you'll want to offer a glimpse of the situation they're in at the beginning of the story. This is what we would call the normal world, which you can learn more about on my blog, The Christian Writer. The situation might include the time period, the country, the state of the main character's relationships, or any important events that happen just before or after the story begins. Number 3, the objective. This is what we would refer to as the want or the goal, depending on what kind of arc your character is on. The objective is the thing that your main character wants more than anything in the world, and it's important to introduce it in your story's premise. So whether they're trying to save the world, or their marriage, or a few extra bucks, make sure that your main character's objective is clear. Number 4, the opponent. If you don't want to reveal the identity of your antagonist in the premise, make sure to only allude to his presence. In one of my story's premises, I refer to the antagonist as an unknown enemy from within. So while you don't actually have to give away your villain's identity, you'll want to let your audience know that there is a villain. Of course, the antagonist doesn't even have to be human. It could be a natural disaster, a robot, an out-of-control situation, an animal, or even the main character themselves. It all depends on your story. Number 5, the disaster. Not only do you want to give your audience a glimpse of the antagonist, but you also want to show them that the threat is real. Whether you reveal the entire disaster or simply allude to it, you need to let the audience know that bad things are coming for your main character. Often, the disaster will be the first plot point of your story. And if you don't know what a plot point is, be sure to visit my blog to learn more. Number 6, the conflict. The antagonist and the disaster provide a lot of conflict on their own. But it's important that you also draw your audience in using internal conflict. This means that you want to show any struggles that your protagonist is having with either the supporting characters or themselves. In one of my premises, I showed the conflict between the 2 main characters and emphasized that the story depended on them learning to work together. So now that you have all the elements for a good premise, it's time to put them together. It doesn't matter a whole lot what order you put them in. Of course, you'll usually want to introduce your protagonist first, but that doesn't always have to be the case. When you're writing your premise, make sure not to get carried away. Only include a few bits of information for each element, and keep the length to about a paragraph. You don't want your premise to get too long and too boring, and you definitely don't want to give too much away. Try to leave your audience with a question, so they'll want to find out the answer. Lastly, it's a good idea to memorize your premise. That way, next time someone asks you what your story is about, you'll have an answer ready for them. Check out my blog in the description below to learn more about things like the normal world and the first plot point. And make sure to subscribe for more writing tips. Bye!